There is a mechanism at work in the global economy right now that is designed to do one thing: not to lower inflation, not to create jobs, and certainly not to help you retire. It is designed to transfer wealth from the many to the few. It is a mechanism that has appeared at the end of every major empire in the last 2,000 years. In Rome in 300 AD, in France in 1720, in Weimar, Germany in 1923. Each time it starts the same way: a thriving middle class built on hard money and honest labor, and each time it ends the same way: a society of masters and serfs with absolutely nothing in between. We call this the middle class extinction. You feel it, don't you? You make more money on paper than your parents did, but you can buy less. You work longer hours, but the house, the car, and the secure retirement move further away. You are told the economy is growing, that GDP is up, that the stock market is at all-time highs, but your bank account doesn't reflect that growth. That is not an accident. That is the math working exactly as required. Right now in 2025, the top 1% of households own 32% of all wealth. The bottom 50%, they own just 2.5%. But the real story isn't the poor, it's the destruction of the middle. The group that stabilizes civilization is being hollowed out by a phenomenon known as the Cantillon effect. It is a six-stage process of wealth extraction. We have already completed stage 4. We are currently living through the painful reality of stage 5. In stage 6 is the final separation, where the bridge is burned and you are either on the castle walls or outside in the mud. This isn't a conspiracy theory, it is monetary history. Let me show you how the middle class was murdered 4 times before, why it's happening again right now, and the only, and I mean only, way you can stop your wealth from being transferred to the elite: the weapon, the Cantillon effect. Before we map the historical stages, you need to understand the weapon being used against you. It's called the Cantillon effect. Named after the 18th century economist Richard Cantillon, it describes a simple truth that modern economists try to hide. Money is not neutral. When a central bank prints $1 trillion, that money doesn't appear in everyone's pocket instantly like magic. It enters the system at a specific point. Usually it goes to the government, big commercial banks, and large corporations first. These are the first receivers. These first receivers get to spend the new money while prices in the economy are still low. They use this fresh cash to buy stocks, real estate, and competitors. They buy the assets before the inflation happens. By the time that money circulates through the economy and finally trickles down to you in the form of your wages or pension, years have passed. And crucially, prices have already risen to reflect the new money supply. The first receivers get the asset inflation, wealth. You, the last receiver, get the price inflation, poverty. This time, lag is the mechanism of the theft. It is a silent tax that slowly bleeds the saver to feed the borrower. It transfers purchasing power from the person working for wages to the person holding assets. Now let's look at the 6-stage pattern that utilizes this effect to wipe out the middle class, starting from the beginning. Stage 1, the sound money era, the anchor. Every cycle begins with stability. Stage 1 is the sound money era. In this stage, money is tied to something physical, usually gold or silver. Because money is scarce, it cannot be printed at will. This incentivizes saving and production. In stage 1, the path to the middle class is clear and meritocratic. Work hard, produce value, spend less than you earn, save the difference. The bank pays you real interest. Your savings grow faster than inflation. You buy a house, you build a life. Ancient Rome, 100 BC to 150 AD. The Roman denarius was 98% pure silver. A soldier, a merchant, or a farmer could save these coins for 20 years and know that they would buy the same amount of land or bread when they retired. This monetary stability allowed a massive class of citizens to rise between the slaves and the senators. Post-war America, 1945 to 1970. The US dollar was pegged to gold at $35 an ounce. The middle class exploded. A single income could support a family of 4, buy a home, a car, and save for a pension. Why? Because the currency wasn't being debased. Productivity and wages grew together in a straight line. Stage 1 is the golden age, but it never lasts. Because politicians, emperors, and kings eventually want to spend more money than they can collect in taxes. They want wars, they want welfare, and they want re-election. And that leads us to stage 2. Stage 2, the decoupling, breaking the anchor. This is the specific moment in history when the government severs the link between the currency and reality. They remove the hard backing so they can print money to solve short-term political problems. Rome, 180 AD. Under Marcus Aurelius and his son Commodus, expenses rose. Instead of taxing the rich senators, they began mixing copper into the silver denarius. They debased the currency to pay the legions. They needed more coins, so they made the coins worth less. The United States, August 15, 1971. This is the most important date in modern economic history. President Richard Nixon announces the temporary suspension of the convertibility of the dollar into gold. This was the moment the anchor was cut. Look at the data. Before 1971, if the economy grew, your wages grew. After 1971, productivity kept going up. American workers were working harder, better, and more efficiently, but wages flatlined. Where did the extra wealth go? It went to the top 1%. It went to the asset holders. Stage 2 changes the rules of the game, but nobody notices immediately. The money still looks the same. The dollar bill didn't turn purple, but the math had changed. The middle class was now swimming upstream, but the current hadn't picked up speed yet. Stage 3, financialization, the illusion. Once the money is unbacked, the government can print as much as it wants. But if they just print cash and hand it out, you get immediate hyperinflation. So they don't do that yet. Instead, they lower interest rates and expand credit. This creates the prosperity illusion. The 1980s and 1990s. The middle class stopped seeing their real wages rise because of stage 2. So they started using debt to maintain their standard of living. Credit cards, car loans, second mortgages, student loans. The financial sector exploded. In stage 1, banks were boring utilities that held your money. In stage 3, trading, derivatives, and financial engineering became the biggest, most profitable industry in the world. France, 1719, the Mississippi Company bubble. Under John Law, France printed paper money to inflate share prices. The people closest to the printing press, the aristocracy, became fabulously wealthy overnight, not by producing anything, but by speculating on paper assets. The term millionaire was literally invented during this period to describe the new class of speculators. In stage 3, the cultural message to the middle class changes. It is no longer save and build. It becomes borrow and spend. Savers are punished with low interest rates. Speculators are rewarded. The cultural rot sets in. If you worked a factory job in 1995, you were falling behind. If you were day trading .com stocks, you were a genius. This stage lasts for decades, masking the rot, but eventually the debt load gets too heavy to sustain, and that triggers the bailouts. Stage 4, the asset inflation, the bifurcation. We lived this explicitly from 2008 to 2020. After the 2008 financial crisis, central banks printed trillions of dollars. But where did it go? It didn't go into consumer prices immediately. It went into assets, stocks, bonds, real estate, art, classic cars. This is where the middle class is fatally wounded. This is the bifurcation. If you owned assets, if you were already rich, the Federal Reserve doubled your net worth for free. If you were trying to buy assets, if you were a young family trying to enter the middle class, the ladder was pulled up. Housing is the primary example. In 1960, the median home cost 3 times the median income. By 2022, it reached 7 times or 8 times in major cities. The definition of middle class is traditionally defined by home ownership. In stage 4, home ownership becomes a mathematical impossibility for wage earners without generational wealth. Weimar Germany, 1921. Before the hyperinflation of 1923, there was an asset boom. The stock market soared. Foreigners came in and bought up German real estate for pennies on the dollar because the currency was weak, but the assets were real. In stage 4, society splits into 2 distinct species, asset owners and wage earners. If you earn wages, you are running on a treadmill that is speeding up. Your raise is 3%. The house you want to buy goes up 20%. You are working harder, but you are getting poorer. If you own assets, you sleep and get richer. This stage destroys the hope of social mobility. And when hope dies, stage 5 begins. Stage 5, the cost of living crisis, the squeeze. Stage 5 is where the inflation spills over from assets like houses and stocks into essentials of food and energy. We are here right now. Check. In Stage 5, the Cantillon effect hits the terminal phase. The money printed in Stage 4 has finally trickled down to the real economy, but it didn't trickle down as wealth. It trickled down as higher prices. In 2021 to 2025, inflation hits 9% officially, but anyone who buys groceries knows it is 20% to 30% cumulatively. For the wealthy, paying 20% more for steak or gas is an annoyance. For the middle class, it is a crisis. For the poor, it is starvation. But here is the trap of Stage 5. Wages always lag inflation. Corporations raise prices instantly. Your boss gives you a raise once a year if you're lucky. In that gap, your standard of living is erased. Revolutionary France, 1789. It wasn't just ideology that caused the revolution. It was the price of bread. The French assignat currency had been overprinted to pay debts. The middle class, the merchants, the lawyers, the artisans, suddenly found themselves unable to feed their families. In Stage 5, the middle class begins to liquidate their assets just to survive. They sell the stocks. They tap into the 401k early. They reverse mortgage the house. They sell the second car. Who buys these assets? The first receivers, the mega corporations, the private equity firms like BlackRock. This is the great consolidation. The middle class is forced to sell their independence to buy survival. We see this now with the build-to-rent revolution. Neighborhoods that used to be owned by families are being bought block by block by institutional investors. They are turning a nation of owners into a nation of renters. Stage 5 is painful, but Stage 6 is final. Stage 6, the extinction. Feudalism 2.0, the reset. This is the end state of the cycle. The currency has lost so much value that the middle class is completely wiped out. The gap between rich and poor becomes unbridgeable. In this stage, you don't have a middle class. You have the elite, the owners of productive assets, land, and technology. The proletariat, everyone else dependent on the state or the elite for subsistence. Weimar, Germany, 1923. The Hugo Stinnes example. Stinnes was an industrialist. He borrowed massive amounts of marks to buy mines, ships, and factories. As the currency collapsed, his debt was wiped out, inflation pays off debt, and he owned physical assets. The German middle class, who had saved in cash and government bonds, lost 100% of their wealth. Doctors and professors were begging in the streets. The future, 2026 to 2030. What does Stage 6 look like for us? It looks like universal basic income combined with a subscription economy. When the middle class is fully destroyed, when AI and automation combine with the currency collapse to erase jobs, the government will step in. They will offer a stipend, a digital allowance, CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. But this money will come with conditions. It is not wealth. It is an allowance. The American dream, the idea that you can start with nothing and build a fortune, dies in Stage 6. The class barriers harden. If you don't own assets before Stage 6 completes, you never will. You will own nothing and be happy. You will rent your house from a hedge fund, lease your car from a tech company, subscribe to your software, and finance your phone. You are a cash flow stream for the elite, not an independent economic actor. So why is this happening? Is it incompetence? Are the central bankers just stupid? No. It is a mathematical necessity of the debt-based system. As we discussed in previous videos, we have $300 trillion in global debt. It cannot be repaid. It is mathematically impossible to generate enough tax revenue to pay it off. It must be inflated away. To inflate away the debt, the government must debase the currency. They must run inflation higher than interest rates. This is called financial repression. Who pays for that? The saver, the person who holds the currency, the middle class. They are burning the furniture to keep the house warm, and you are the furniture. The Cantillon effect is the vacuum cleaner that sucks the purchasing power out of your savings account and deposits it into the stock portfolios of the too-big-to-fail institutions. It is the greatest heist in human history, and it is happening in slow motion, right in front of your eyes. The solution, the escape plan. Now listen to me closely. This is the most important part of the video. The pattern has played out 5 times before, and every single time, there was a minority of people who didn't just survive, they thrived. How? They understood the game. They stopped playing by the rules of Stage 1 of save cash and started playing by the rules of Stage 6, own assets. You cannot stop the extinction of the middle class. The forces are too big. But you can choose to leave the middle class, not by falling down, but by climbing up. Here is your survival guide for the Great Transfer 1. Abandon the cash is king mindset. In a Stage 5/6 scenario, cash is trash. It is like holding an ice cube in the desert. Do not keep more money in the bank than you need for 3 to 6 months of expenses. Every day it sits there, the Cantillon effect is stealing a sliver of it. 2. Become an owner, not a loaner. When you put money in a savings account, you are lending money to the bank. When you buy a bond, you are lending money to the government. In an inflationary depression, lenders get slaughtered. You must own equity, real companies with pricing power, productive land, rental real estate. Why? Because when inflation hits, the price of the product goes up, the rent goes up, the asset value reprices in the new worthless currency. The asset floats, the cash sinks. 3. The inflation shield assets. History highlights 3 specific assets that survived the reset. Gold and silver, the eternal money. Rome, France, Weimar, the only money that has no counterparty risk. Bitcoin, the digital escape hatch. It is the only asset that cannot be diluted by a central banker. It is the anti-Cantillon asset. Commodities, oil, energy, food, farmland, things people need to survive regardless of the currency. 4. Good debt versus bad debt. This is controversial, but history proves it. In a high inflation environment, fixed rate debt is a gift. If you have a 30-year mortgage at 3% or 4%, and inflation goes to 10%, the bank is paying you to live in your house. The real value of the debt is shrinking every year. Bad debt, credit cards, variable rates, will enslave you. Good debt, fixed, asset-backed, allows you to short the currency. 5. Education is the new gold. The skills that got you into the middle class in 1990 are the first to be wiped out by AI and cost-cutting. You need leverage. You need to understand macroeconomics. You need to know how to read a balance sheet. Conclusion. The middle class is an anomaly in history. For most of human existence, there were lords and peasants. We had a brief, beautiful window from 1950 to 2000 where a broad middle class existed. That window is closing. The math of the debt cycle demands it. The Cantillon effect is the mechanism of closure. We are in Stage 5. The squeeze is on. The bifurcation is happening. You have a choice. You can keep hoping that politicians will fix it, that prices will come down, that the good old days will return, or you can accept the reality of the pattern. The system is resetting. It is transferring wealth from the passive to the active, from the trusting to the educated, from the saver to the investor. Don't let them take your wealth. Don't be the victim of the 6th extinction. History is a script that has already been written. You just need to know which character you are going to play. Subscribe if you want to survive Stage 6.